This is Kathleen Bassett, and I'm going to be talking about Parenthood and Children. So here are some factors to be considered before becoming a parent. So we're going to be talking about benefits and drawbacks of having children, so things that will add to your life if you're having kids, and there's going to be things that might take away from your life. And then ways children can affect your relationship. So different things that children might affect with your spouse, and the option of not having children. And these are all things that Lamanna, Reedman, and Stewart talk about in their textbook on pages 193 through 197. So here are some benefits of having children. Having a child may make a person feel like adults. So basically, some people look for this fulfillment, like when they're older, they don't really feel like a real adult, one might say, until they have kids. And then Lamanna, Reedman, and Stewart state that parenthood is an extremely meaningful aspect of personal identity. So that just kind of means like a lot of people really value their children as part of them. And parenthood may also produce a feeling of commitment as well as meaning. So here are some drawbacks of having children. The first is child rearing is expensive. So raising a child, I think the book talks about it being in around every middle class family spends around $250,000, if I remember correctly, from the time the child is born to until they're 18. So that's really expensive. It's definitely going to add a lot of expenses to your life if you have a kid. And there also may be sacrifices you have to make when raising your children. So you might not be able to take a certain job because your kid is in school and you don't want to move schools for your kid, and the job is in a different city or something like that, and it's a lot harder to travel and more expensive to travel with children than when you don't have children. And here are some ways children can affect your relationship. Having children in most cases lowers the likelihood of divorce. So that's kind of like a benefit, a positive way it can affect your relationship. But also it talks about down here that children can also lower marital happiness. So marriages that have a lot of children aren't as statistically as happy as marriages that have less children or no children, and that's what Lamanna, Reedman, and Stewart state in their textbook on page 196. After having children, majority of couples tend to take on traditional roles within a family. So that just means that, after having kids, a wife might be cooking more and cleaning more, and a husband might be working more. Those are kind of what we call like traditional roles. And parents may experience psychological decline. So a lot of parents experience mental illness like depression or anxiety after having kids. So a lot of people are choosing to be child-free is what we call it. So basically not having children. Statistics show that not having children may result in having a greater education and a better paying job. So a lot of people that don't have kids go to college longer, go back for a second degree, whereas people that have kids, that's a lot harder to do when you have a kid to look out for. Also, couples are often urban, meaning they live downtown or not in the suburbs, and not as traditional when it comes to gender roles, not as religious, and couples without children are usually not as conventional. There was a study that showed that elderly, child-free couples are happier within their lives and less stressed. So here, the next thing we're going to be talking about is changes in trends of parenthood. So we're going to be talking about mother's desire to return to work after having a child and couples deciding to be child-free. So, a mother's desire to return to work after having a child has changed throughout the years. And one of the things that Polvonia talks about is that mothers that have an education and give birth when they're older tend to return to work before they plan to have another child. In 1979, only 24% of mothers with children that were less than 1 year old returned to work. And that percentage doubled by 1988, so comparative to the 24% of mothers with children that were less than 1 year old, by the time 1988, 45 or 44% of mothers that with a child that were less than 1 year old returned to work. In 1996, the percentage rose to 67% of women returning to work. And this is in Polvonia's article on page 337. So again, couples deciding to be child-free. Women experience several things when deciding to be child-free, according to Gillespie in 2003, the benefits being they experience more freedom, more intimacy with their partner, wider opportunities, and better finances. And she talks about this on pages 125 to 129. Here are some advantages to parenting in the 21st century. Social media, along with cell phones, help families stay in touch with one another, along with extended family members. Less children are exposed to crimes now compared to 20 years before. Now parents have access to the internet, which can help them with close to any circumstances. And Lamana Reedman Stewart talk about this on page 219. And lastly, we're going to be talking about some challenges to parenting in the 21st century. Parents have a hard time managing time between work and family. Children are exposed to more through the internet, TV, and other forms of media, which pose greater challenges to parents. Advice parents get can be contradictory. Lots of parents have to take care of their parents along with their children, so like the grandparents and the parents are taken care of. Society is less willing to help lower income families, and parenting is more subjective now than in the past. And lastly, here are the resources that I used.